Good morning. Welcome. Day 4, Authentication Week. So today we go back in time, a few weeks back to the time where we heard about this blue thing called React. Remember that? Yep. So we need React developers here today. So we're gonna have some of you work with me. You're gonna be the navigator in this rally, and I'm going to be the driver. So I'm ears and hands while you're driving the code. Okay, that's the idea. How we're gonna do this is there's a randomizer called Josh Seeker, and he's gonna randomly pick someone from the Zoom channel that's gonna help us out here. Okay. So we have this project, and this is just a server. It's just a server that we've been working on. So what should have happened is we downloaded that, run yarn, yarn server, and we should have this running on port 5000. If we could go and check it out. If you go and do get to / on that server, it's alive. You could register a user. You could log in with that user. The user that you register, I have this user already in the database called Sam Pass. You could use these credentials if you want to test it out. Can log in with those. When you log in, you're going to get a token, and then you can go to the / users and get the list of the users there. Right? Server is there. So let's, for a minute, think that this is deployed somewhere on the web. And we're going to use it. Only that the web is localhost 5000 for us today. And then we need to build a front end for this. And we should have on that front end everything related to authentication. We're just going to do the login and maybe show the list of users in a really ugly UI. But the idea today is concentrating on what can we do with that token once we have it on the client. And we're going to handle it using local storage. There are probably more secure ways of doing this. But it's just give you the mechanics of it. You could keep it in memory. It could be on the app. You could stick it in a header. You could wrap it inside a session and send it back in a cookie. We're going to take an easy approach, which is you're going to grab the token, have it in local storage, and on every request, and this is what really matters here, is on every request that we do, now we're going to attach that token. We're going to read it from local storage and then you attach it on the request. And we're going to take advantage of Axios to do that. Okay. I know that you already did this. I know that you have done this with render props. I know that you even block routes on the client and all that. I want to remind you that hiding routes on the client is not security. Okay, what you're really protecting is on the server, is the data on the server. So all of that is really good for the UI experience for the user, that they don't get to see the routes and all that. But that's not securing anything. Okay, that is just user experience. Remember that. So what's important is what's happening on the server. If you don't pass a valid token, no data for you. That's the idea. Okay. So since this is going to be a React application, and we all know that Dustin and Dan, they're the React people, I'm going to call upon you, my fellow citizens, to offer yourselves as tribute to help me navigate the world of React. So, Josh, I think we should pick the first tribute.
All right.
You got, I lost you there for a minute.
I said Henry, if that's all right. Henry Blevins, unmuted.
Henry, I know what happens because when I'm looking at the list of faces on my Zoom strip, you show like right there. I don't know. Maybe the randomizer was like, it's the first one right there.
Well, they know I'm ready. So.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Excellent. We're just gonna create this React application separate from the server. The server is just running there. It's just gonna be running on the background. I can minimize that window. We can forget about the server. We know that we can test it out and it works. So, and it's on localhost 5000. So from here, let's take it away. Let's say I have this here and I want to create a React application. Where do we start?
Yeah, so I would go with yarn create React-app.
Let's call it, I'm going to call it Henry.
Sounds good.
Yep. So this is basically create React app.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm cropping out Henry. Yeah, this is a shortcut that I have for create React app. So it's create React app. Crap.
Very good.
And normally when you're not running Zoom, this is a lot faster. Trust me. Yes.
Good to know.
Yeah, Nick, you could have been crapping out React apps. Yeah. You could do npx, create React app. I have found maybe you could use a yarn, create React app instead. Maybe it's a little more solid because I have found mixed results with npx. And if you have it installed globally, just do create React app and then the name. That's it. Try this, npx, create React app. And then, the name of the app. If I did this, let's call it auth. It should work, hopefully. Let's see. The silence and the fear. Will this work or not? I do have the LTS version of Node.js, so that helps because you know that you're in a stable version of Node. So. Or at least not on the stable, but not the latest, not on 12. I think it's 12.22 or something now, and maybe on 11. So it works. I think I'm on 11. Let me see. Yep, 11.13. So let's go into Henry because Henry is driving this. That's the first tribute. Okay, do code, grab our editor, and we're ready to go. Close this window. We could have done. Oh no! I don't want to cancel all windows. I just want to close this one. Here we go. And this is what we got. Okay, so the first stop is if I like to have some routing. I like to use create React. The React router. Well, how can we set up this application so that I can do some routing later? Where do I go?
You'd want to go back to the terminal and add React router as a dependency.
Okay, so sounds good. So I'm in Henry, yarn, add React router DOM. Is that the one?
Yep.
Okay. Index CSS. I'm going to add some coding here. Body. Give it some padding. This is not related to anything, to rem. And then text align. Not that, yeah. Line center. Okay. All right, so this is installing. We have it. What else can we do now?
All right, so then we'd head over to app.js, or I'm sorry, index.js.
Here, okay.
And we would want to import browser router as router from React router DOM.
Come on, there we go. So browser router as router. Should have detected that. It's kind of slow. All right.
And then on line 10, we would wrap the app component in a router component.
Okay, so we want to do something like this. All right, straight up.
I think.
What is this?
Yeah, something went wrong in there.
What the? All right. So what was that R doing there? Okay. There we go. Where's that comma? There we go. Render. Oh, that's good. That comment
We do need that comment, yeah.
Yeah. Why is this complaining? I have no idea. Your line. That works fine. Okay.
Okay, great.
What else?
So now we're set up to do routes, so we could head over to our index.js, or I'm sorry, app.js. And we can import route from React Router DOM.
So bad, so slow. Okay, okay. And this is going to be from React Router DOM.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Now this is better. And then here, we could just clean this up and have a route for, I don't know, the home component.
We could have a route, for login, sign up, whatever we're feeling like.
Okay, so let's assume that we're gonna have a login.
Okay.
So let's add a route that will kind of display this login component. We don't have it yet, but let's assume that we have one, or if not, let's just go and create one. So let's say that we have inside of this source folder here. Let's create a new folder, call it auth or something, and then in there, let's add a login component. JS. What would this look like?
So then we would import React from React.
Okay.
And then we would create a component, either functional or class-based, that for now just renders a div or something random.
Mm-hmm.
So then we would define the render member function.
And then in here, let's just return H3 that says login.
Great. And then we would have to export login as well.
Oh man, so glad I have you here. Okay, save that. Now let's add that route.
All right, so we would import login from auth/login.
Okay.
Great. And then, somewhere in this component, we would create a route component with the path equal to maybe /login and the component equal to our login component.
I'm gonna clean up this a little bit. Get rid of some of the stuff that we're not gonna need anymore. Maybe add a main session here. And then a route, you said?
Mm-hmm.
What do we have here?
Path would be equal to /login. And then component would be equal to our login component.
Like so?
No, we'd have to do curly braces because we're invoking JavaScript. Trying to trick me. And
no, never. So let's add a link up here.
Great. So we would have to, on line 2, we would have to import link from React Router DOM, or navlink.
Yeah.
If you want to do fancy. And then we would make a navlink component with the 2 equal to /login.
Like so, right?
No, this time we do quotes. We could do curly braces and then quotes inside of it if you wanted to confuse everyone.
Anything else?
And then we would have to make the body of the component be whatever we wanted it to display, login.
Okay. I'm trusting you here. I'm gonna do yarn star. Are we done? Think that's gonna work?
Let's see.
This is the front end. It's not as solid as the back end, right? Back end works just easy. This is gonna, you never know. And it's not JavaScript or React, it's just the DOM. The DOM is just such a weird platform. Hey, we have a login thing. Yay. There you go, login component. I think we could do something to clean this up. Maybe this thing, we can get rid of all that, right? And this app header thing might also be part of it. Yeah, let's just do that. And I think we cleaned it up enough. Let's see it. There you go. Yep, with the login component. And if we go back, we have slash. Perfect. Cool. All right, Henry. Thank you very much. You have been
welcome.
routing. Yeah. Excellent. All right, Josh. Who's next?
All right. Let's try Joe. Here we go.
I don't know. There is a Joe here.
Yep.
All right.
Now what are we doing?
All right, Joe. I want to have a form inside of this login component, right? We already have the login component. We might as well just fill it up. So I'd like to have a form to collect username and password.
Okay. So that's going to go in our component login.js. And then instead of that H3, we're going to have a form tag.
Okay.
And then we can give that a class name too, like login form.
So we can get rid of all, like, so, I'm sorry, what? So
return, and then
yeah, we're gonna return some stuff, right? That's the first thing.
Instead of that login component line,
Okay.
we could put an open tag for a form.
Okay. So I want to keep kind of something that says like login or something.
Okay, then we should make it a div then surrounding it.
Oh, this is a fragment. It works.
Oh, yeah.
Without adding the extra div. Yeah.
Okay.
So a form here.
Yep.
And what are we gonna have inside that form?
Inputs for a username and a password.
Okay. So let's say that we're gonna have a label for each, maybe a div. Do we want to wrap them inside a div? Yeah, maybe like a div and label an input on each div.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So let's have like a div, and then inside of that div, I want to have a label plus an input, and then
we're gonna need a submit button too after the labels and inputs.
So we probably want to have another div with a button inside. And this would be a div. Label an input, and we want to have two of those, right?
Yeah, username, password. Yep.
So we want to have two of those, and a div with a button. Boom. That looks good. And then we can get rid of the action. Oh, I don't think this is what we wanted. No, never mind. We wanted to have two of this. Okay, so it would be more like two of this. And then the div. So we want to have the div inside our label and an input. And then we want to have two of those divs plus having the div with a button.
Yeah.
Is
that Emmet? I've never used that before.
Yeah, that's Emmet.
Okay.
Cool.
All right. And then for
what snippet? Okay. All right. Let me show you what's going on here. That's just interesting. So I'm having a form, and this character means just go check out Emmet. It's pretty cool, and this built into Visual Studio. You don't have to install any plugins or anything. But any other editor has a plugin for Emmet. So all you have to do is find that plugin and install it. So any editor that you use. So this means inside of that form, I want to have whatever is in this parenthesis. Okay, probably that outer parenthesis may not be needed in this case. It's good. It's good enough just to have that. Let's try it out. But the idea here is I want to have two of these things, right? This start to means I want to have two of whatever is in the parenthesis here. Plus means next to that, I want to have a div, and inside the div, I want to have a button. And if we want this to be type submit, I could also say type equals submit. I don't remember if you have to do this or not. You may, okay? So that's all it's doing. And this is saying a label plus an input together next to each other in the same level. And then once we have that inside of the div, I'm going to multiply that div by 2. And hopefully when you are at the end and you hit tab, it will expand and give you that. See the type submit? Showed up there now in the button. Pretty easy. Once you kind of get the hang of the syntax. It's pretty good when you need to generate a whole, like you're creating a table and you need to generate a lot of the same things. You could just use that and it's pretty fast. Okay, so for the HTML4 on this label, and the reason we're doing a label and an input, just so you know, is we wanna be accessible. And it's always, every time you have a form, you have inputs, it's a good idea to have a label, okay? And we're gonna tie them together, the ID of the input to the HTML4 on the label. So I'm gonna say this is going to be for the username. And so we need to add an ID of username to this. And then, and by the way, I could just do this. Let's just to go a little more. So let's do this. Let's say we're gonna need an ID. I don't know what it's gonna be. We're also gonna need for the inputs. Do you want to do something for the inputs to capture the data from the inputs?
Yeah, we're gonna do a handler to set the state on change. That's what it was, on change.
Okay, so we're doing on change. This is gonna be this dot something, but we also need to grab the value from state, right? So it's gonna be value equals this dot state dot something.
Mm-hmm.
Because that way we have like all of that stuff already there. So let's go and fill it up. For the first one, the ID, the ID is going to be username. For the one underneath, it's going to be password. For the onChange, we could probably do this be the same. So we could do this dot
set state
handle change.
Oh yeah, we can make the handler.
Yeah. And then for the value, this is gonna this state that username, and for the other one is gonna be password, and the type for the password should be probably password, right?
That's what makes it come out as like asterisks, right?
Yep, that's exactly it. So this is gonna be for the username, and this one is gonna be for the password, and this here is gonna be the login button. Save that. And that's what it looks like now, so far. Cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we should make the handle change function.
Yeah, you're not doing that. We're gonna let someone else do that, right?
Oh, okay.
No, but this is good. What else are we gonna do? Let's just set up kind of the boilerplate for this. We're talking about this dot state, that username, this dot state, that password. We have no state. How can we do that?
What's that? Constructor. We're gonna make a constructor method.
We could, but I like to have this. I think this is a little cleaner, right? And I know that I have a SAM user there, but that you could do the constructor too.
What are we losing by not doing the constructor and calling super?
The ability to run code when the component starts. But if we're not going to do any special code other than just having the state, we could just do this properly like this. The constructor is, every time you instantiate a class, you call new on a constructor function, basically, or a class on JavaScript, right? The constructor is an opportunity to run some code before anything else happens for the component. This is why it's called a constructor. So this method is going to run, and you could run some code in there. Normally, you're not doing anything other than calling super with it. So the newer patterns for writing class components is you don't use it unless you really need it. Because when you do on the constructor style, like before, you had to do the binding of the functions, but now we have these methods that we could just add in here. You don't have to be doing bindings before everything happens on the controller, on the component, so not needed anymore. So you could do it this way, and it's fine. I also find it easier to read, not only to write. Point being, constructor works, it's fine, but not needed. All right, so we have that username and password. We have the onChange. We haven't written that yet. This is the render method, right? So let's go write this one, handle change. It's going to be a method that's going to take, I know it's going to take an event, so I'm going to write it right there, but I want someone else to help me write this. Joe, good job. Very good. Joe and Henry, good work. So next tribute.
All right, let's go with Divya.
Divya, hello.
Okay, so we can start with capturing, say, the username.
Okay.
So you want event.target.value to be replaced in the state.
Okay, so let's kind of steal a sample from the React documentation and do some kind of the structuring here. Say const. I'm gonna grab from the event.target. We're grabbing let's grab the ID and the value. So that means that from the event.target that represents each component, like this input right here, for the first input, the value of ID is going to be username. That happens to map nicely to the username on the state. And for the second input, the ID is password. That happens to map nicely to the password on state too, right? And then the value, of course, we're going to grab those from the state, from the component.
I was wondering, should that ID be name actually? I've seen it with name.
Yeah, it could. The thing is that the ID is doing two things. It's letting me now when you tie together a label and an input, and you should, right? For accessibility reasons, you always want to have label and inputs. You want to tie them together. So that means that I'm clicking on the label or information about the label itself for people that need to use screen readers and stuff like that. This is better for accessibility. So the for on HTML is going to be the HTML4 here. This is going to tie to the value of the ID on the input. So those two are together now. And if I click on the label, it's going to select the input by default. It's really good, right? So get used to doing that. And since we already have that value, we could add the name here. You have seen the examples having name, but it's going to be repeating the same thing. And this is normally how I do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the last time that we did this, student was like, we already have those values as part of the ID. Can we use those? I was like, yeah, we can use them. So it works. In this case, it works because we have those values already there. No need to repeat them.
Okay.
But it's the same concept. So here, what do we do now?
So we can do set state. Oh, this dot set state, and then brackets, curlies, and then ID. Put the brackets ID : event dot target dot value.
Yeah, we have it. We destructured.
Oh, just there. Value. Yeah.
So it's the structure already. So that means that if this is working and I go to that login, if I type, I should see what I'm typing now as part of this. So if I do something like, ooh, nice, good job. Perfect. This is working nice. All right. So questions about this code, because I think Divya is going to have to explain this code. I don't know what's doing. Questions? No questions? Everybody understands this code? Good job. If not, send the documentation for React. So go check it out. Under control components, I think there's a sample that explains it. Thank you, Divya. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, what are we missing here? Well, we have this button, and if we do this, oh yeah, I always have to go and stop this thing. Chrome extensions. Stop. Okay. So when we do this, what we're doing is a refresh of the page, but that's not what we want to do. In this case, what I'd like to do is I'd like to make a call to the server and send the credentials to /API/auth/login. Who's going to help me do that? Next tribute. Oh, wait a minute. No, minute 35. I like to do like 35 minutes, take a 5-minute break, and then another 35 minutes, just to make sure that if you know that you need to do something, instead of walking away from the class, just wait for the next break and do that there. So let's take 5 minutes, and then when we come back, we're going to fill up that next step to send that data. See you in 5. Or we could make it shorter, but the first one is going to be 5 minutes. we're not really back yet, but to get people starting to move to the computer. And the wheel spinning for the next tribute.
Well, Nick volunteered, so we'll go ahead and pick him.
Good. Nick, are you there? No, go hide now.
It won't let me unmute him for some reason.
Yeah, I was trying to unmute. So
Okay.
thumbs up, I'm ready. I'll sign language my way through this.
All right, so here's what we have so far. We have the data, and it's on state. We have the username and the password on state. I'd like to kind of make a call to the server now and see if we can send that data and get a token back.
All right, so first things first, just to make it easier, I would go ahead and yarn add Axios or npx install, either one.
Okay.
The next, like, just no-brainer important thing to do would be to make an, yeah, to import Axios from Axios.
Wow, my computer is dead.
And then we would want to make another method for onSubmit. And the other important part that for sure we shouldn't forget in the beginning would be to prevent default, because otherwise it's just going to keep on refreshing the page. And then we'll want to do a post to post it to the server on, I forget what the routing was, API/auth, something like that, localhost.
Yep, let's define it. Const, you know, the endpoint. It's gonna be HTTP to localhost. Hey, not login, login. Okay, here we go. And then?
With the post, we also, okay, I'm not sure if it would be on the onSubmit, but I know that we need to get the token, because that's the important part of all is to begin with.
We
and
don't,
local storage.
We don't have a token. We're just doing the login.
That would be a get after that, I guess. Sorry, it's been a little while since React.
Yeah, but we're doing the login yet. We don't have a token yet. So we're doing the login so that we can get a token back.
Yeah, that would be registration, I guess.
Yeah.
That I don't know. I'm thinking differently. It almost feels like this should be registration instead of just login, but that's okay.
That's fine. We have a user, so we don't have to register. The
Okay.
registration is going to be similar, only that you're going to be hitting a different endpoint. But for this case, though, I want to send the credentials. How can I do that?
In a header?
To send the username and the password?
Oh, no, sorry. I was thinking, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm still just thinking about token. For the credentials, we would want to have the credentials somewhere in there, I guess.
We have them somewhere here. We capture them. They're part of the state. Look at the state object.
Oh yeah, duh. Sorry.
So how do we send them?
It has been a minute. Just a second. Let me go look at my old thing real quick just to make sure that I'm doing this right.
I'm going to help you out there. The second argument for this post would be the data that we want to send as part of the body, right? And the endpoint is wired to read it from the body. So we're going to say that state. Just because in this case, though, the state looks exactly like what we need. It's an object that has a username and password. So I'm just going to pass that object off. Okay, there's a state. And of course, this is going to have a promise. I'm just going to return a response. So we always have this dead and catch. We may get an error back. Actually, we don't really get an, well, But this error needs to be handled gracefully, so we're gonna do it for now. You know, login error. But on the response here, let's see what we get. See what that response looks like. Like that. Looks like we're good to go. See what happens. All right. Is this working at all? I don't think it's doing what we think it's doing because it's still refreshing. What are we missing?
We did prevent defaults, right?
We did. And we created a method, and it seems to be. But for some reason, when I click that button, that it's almost like this code is not running at all. I don't know why.
Oh, because it's not actually hooked up to the submit button. Sorry.
Yeah. So let's take this form and say I'm gonna hide on submit of this form. We're gonna run that code. This that what do we call it? Submit form. Okay. Since this is type submit, clicking, hitting enter, all of that should execute the submit. Hopefully, let's try it out. Let's clean this up. Ooh, it did something. 401.
We are forbidden. Not forbidden, but like not authorized.
But we're hitting the login. Let's see the network. Are we going to the right spot? Okay, let's see the headers, /API /auth /login. Let's see if that's the right thing. Where's my insomnia? There we go. So on the login, we want to go to API auth login, and we want to pass username and password, and we're using Sam and pass.
Password instead of pass.
Okay, so Sam pass. Let's see. It's not registered yet. Okay, so we know that we're hitting the right endpoint. That's important. Localhost 5000/API login, but we're getting this 401 unauthorized, and this is coming from the server. So something related to the data that we're sending is not correct. That's what it looks like, right? So let's see if we can troubleshoot it. Yep, it's this right here, right? Sam and pass. Sam and pass. Okay, make sure that we have that data, and that's what we're sending. We're sending Sam. Oh, look at that. We're sending Sam and password. Let's try it out. So that looks like we're hitting our endpoint correctly. See if we pass in the right credentials, should work. And we get back this data. Yay. Let's try it out again. Boom. Okay. So it looks like we have 200. Okay. There's this data thing, and inside data, we have welcome Sam, and we have a token there. Nice. Good job. So we're good to go. Looking at this structure, we're going to get another tribute to see if they can help me save this token to local storage after we log in. All right, Josh.
All right, we're going to go with Will.
Ooh.
Unmuted. Oops, sorry. There you go.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so it looks like we need to take that data that we just got and get the token and submit that back to the server, right?
Okay, back to the server. Oh yeah, there's a doc. It's like telling me, hey, React 16 has some cool stuff to clean that up. I have to look into that, but not now. Let's continue.
So on the server side, are we expecting it to come from the headers, the token?
On the server side, we're getting the token sent back as inside of the data property. Remember that when you use Axios, the data that comes back on the server is wrapped inside this data property.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so this is where the token is. It's inside res.data.token. So
Okay.
what we want to do is save that to local storage.
Right. Okay. So let's see, where are we receiving the data at? Where are we console logging that at?
Right here.
Gotcha. Okay. So after that console log, or instead of that, we could just do local storage dot set item, and then you can name it token, and then I guess you go outside of that, like right in the then, and then declare a variable. And name it token, or you could just do res.data.token. Yeah. And let's see. That should work. It'll save it as a string, right?
Yeah, it should work. Let's try it out. So let's check out our application here. It should show up in local storage for this domain. There's a key called token there. We're not gonna have it. That's probably from some other demo. So we're gonna delete that. We're gonna hit login. Here we go. We have our jot.
Boom.
That was fast. Pretty good. Okay, pretty good. All right, good job. Questions so far? So is it best to call your submit function on form submit or button on click? For usability, for the user experience, I like to have it set up this way. You could click the login button if you want, but just filling out, when you're filling out the form, you add the username and the password. If you hit enter anywhere in here, the on-submit of the form is going to execute. And if you have a type submit button, the first one that you have there as submit is gonna run too. So this means that this is gonna work if you hit enter on the form or if you hit submit on the button or click it. It's just for usability purposes. So the logo, I love it when people tell me, Luis, I hate seeing warnings there. Like this is telling me I have this. I don't know if this is something we can fix right now, but at least this we can get rid of it. So the idea here is we have this app here and we have this logo we're not using. Let's get rid of it. If you want to go even further, we can get rid of all of the stuff that we're not using, like service workers and all that. I think we're good there. The other question is, did you add any styling? Did I miss that? I added a little bit of style on the body in the index.css. I just added this, a little bit of padding to get rid of it. To get rid of, and I got rid of on the app.js. I got rid of all of the classes that I had there, just to clean it up so that those don't get on the way. That's why it looks so plain. Is there another way to send the token from the server? Yeah, you could send it as a header. Send it as a cookie. You don't have to have a library for that. You have a header called set cookie, and you could pass the value of the token as the value of that set cookie thing is going to be a key value pair. You could say the token equal and then the value of the token there. You could do that manually. Normally, though, when you're just sending a response, you normally send it as part of the body. What's important is how you store it on the client. Again, local storage is not going to be, and if you go and read on the online, you're going to find people telling you, never ever use local storage for this stuff. We're just looking at a simple approach so that you have something to get started with. Hopefully you're never going to have to do this manually, right? Hopefully you're going to use a third-party server or something that is some kind of other library that handles this better. But this is for you to get started. And again, when you join a company, I hope they're not going to ask you to roll this, okay? What would I do? I go with a third party. I would see if I can convince them to go with Auth0 or something like that. Yep. Because those services are going to use OAuth version 2, and you're still going to be with tokens, but they have technology in place so that your token is going to be in memory only. So you never persist it anywhere. It's not on a header. It's not on a cookie. It's going to be in memory only. But they do a lot of, there's a lot that goes into that, and I think they have to use iframes and all that, because those servers also keep a record of all the tokens on the server. So what happens is if you refresh the application and it was in memory, you lose it, but they provide an endpoint that you hit, and it will remember, and it will send you back the token again. But that's something that they do, and it's not easy. I don't know how it's done, actually. So, yep. So I delegate all of that complexity and the back and forward and all that to some other place. Now for your build weeks, for your demos, for simple projects, yeah, just do this and you're done. If you don't mind, if you really don't want to use this, you can always wrap it in the session and just have it in a cookie and say that the cookie cannot be accessed from JavaScript. The danger with this is any JavaScript code can get access to your token. That is the danger here. Because the same thing that you're going to do now, which is grab the token with get item, any other JavaScript file that is running here, including node modules, can grab that token and steal it. So that is the danger. One way to avoid it is you could have on the app here on state, you could have some state here. Again, this is going to have there's going to be something else with this, and the problem with this is if you refresh the app, you lose the token. You would have to log in again. But it is a lot more secure than having it on local storage. And then you could just have a token here. And this thing is just going to be null originally. And then when you get it, then you set that token. Okay? This is something that you could do. And this would be on state at the higher level of the app, or maybe you're using Redux. It's going to be on the Redux store, but it's only in memory. It's never saved. So no other JavaScript file can go and find it. Only your React application is going to have access to that. And that's okay because that's your app, right? So why is it a problem that other JavaScript files can access it? Because we have these non-modules and there's too many packages in there. What if one of those packages is just looking for tokens or JOTs or whatever, and just looking for your local storage and grabbing all the stuff that is there and sending it to someone else? Now they have your token, right? So it is definitely a security issue. So keeping it on memory is another way of doing it. Just keep it on state at the application level, the higher level of the app. And that way you know that you always have access to it. People are thinking now, hey, maybe I could use the context API if I'm not using Redux, right? So all of that can be done. But the idea here is you either have it in memory, you have it in a header, or you have it on local storage, or you use one of those third-party libraries and you always keep it in memory. And when you need it, there is an endpoint that you hit that is going to send it back to you if the token is still valid. Okay. If I knew how Auth0 and the big boys do all of that iframing stuff, I would be teaching you that, but I don't. It's a really complex process, and I don't know how they do it in a secure manner. And why haven't I learned it? Because I don't think, unless you're working for one of those companies, I don't think you're be exposed to that level of complexity. So I haven't felt the need. And I think most developers never have to do this. Like, deal with it unless you join one of those companies, and then they'll teach you. They're security experts. They're going to tell you, hey, this is how it's done. This is the secrets that nobody knows. All of you are now thinking, I thought instructors knew everything. No, we don't. We only know the stuff that we have done before. No, not even that. We know some of the stuff that we have done before, and for the rest, you just Google and look at our old code. Like you heard before, one of you said, I would have to go, I think it was Nick's, like, I would have to go and check my old code. Yes, exactly. That's what we do. Okay? So get used to that. Yep. I Google. Have you seen that commercial? That little video is like, I Google. You haven't seen that? It's a pretty cool one. I think it was you, Josh, that posted that? Someone posted that in the channel. I was like,
I don't remember who posted it, but yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, Cole Steele's video on that. Someone posted it. Was you, man? Someone posted it. It was so cool. We Google. Yep. It's pretty nice. So what do I feel about encrypted tokens versus signed tokens? Even if you sign them, what you're doing, you're encrypting them anyways, right? Because at the end of the day, you need to be able to decrypt it, to decode it. So the process is going to be two-way. Always. Okay. In the case of tokens, it's different when you're doing things like password, because you could say a password reset is fine. But in the case of the tokens, you need to decode it to make sure that it's valid on the server. So it's always going to have to be a two-way process. So it's probably encrypting anyways. Oh, Angelo, he posted that link. Thank you, sir. So, okay, we're good. We already have a token is being saved. Now, the next problem that we have is, remember that when we're doing cookies, the cookies get sent automatically. But the tokens, they don't. So the client is now responsible for holding on to the token, but also for sending it on every request. So that means, let's say that we had, a user's endpoint. Let's go create that real quick. I wish I had this code so I could just post it in there. Let's make it simple. Can someone help me with this? Josh, can you pick someone else to help me write, like a list of users on a simple UL, like nothing fancy, just like a list of users?
Sure, we're gonna go with Darian Payton.
All right, Darian.
Oh, I get the easy question.
Yeah.
So we'll start off with importing React, and we're gonna also import. I assume we're gonna import Axios at some point, so we could do that now if you want to. We can do it later.
Yeah.
And then yep. Class, users, extends, React component. And we're going to do the state and set the state equal to users, or set users equal to an empty array.
Good job.
And now we can do the render. Let's throw a div, and inside the div we could return, or inside the div we could do, I guess we could have a title, just like call it users or something, or list of users. Okay, that's fine.
Let's got it.
Our
users.
And now we want to map over the array of users that we have at state. So this.state.users, yep, that map. And then inside we want to return you said let's do a ULLI, right? So inside we want to return, yep, the LI. And then we want to do u.username. Is that what we have? Yeah. And throw an ID. Yep. And that's it. Unless you want to get into the whatever else part.
Well, how are we gonna get the users now?
Now we need to pull the users from the back end, which means we got to do component did mount and then use Axios.
All right, so here's the URL for that, for the users. So you say component did mount?
Yep.
Okay, so like that?
Yep. And so we can set, do the endpoint and then set it equal, and then an Axios GET request, and from there, the then, and then a catch. And so inside the then, we want to do res, and then set on the res, we want to, I'm sorry, just like going.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'm trying to catch up with you. Okay.
We want to set the state. So this dot set state, and then it should be res dot, what is it? Or you set users to res dot data dot users, I think it is on the thing.
Let's take a look. So we get in, this is what we get. We get the array as the response. So it's going to be
okay. So just this dot data.
All right. Let's try it out. See what we get. Well, we can navigate to that. So can we kind of add something to our app so that we can get to that endpoint?
Yeah. So we can do another route. Oh, is this going in header? Okay. We can do a nav link to users / users.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's do kind of a, like at least have a couple of spaces in there. And then this is going to go to users.
Yep.
And don't look at our design skills here. This is not about designing an application. This is about kind of, getting the data out. And then we need that users component.
And we'll have to import,
We are inside of app. Yeah, that's it. Should be good, hopefully. Let's try it out. Let's see. Is it on the wrong spot? Oh, it's outside. Should be inside source. Here we go. Okay. Failed to compile. Tenter users. Yeah, that was before. Don't lie to us. I think we're good. Let's try. Maybe. App users. Yeah, that's good. Yep.
That should work.
It should, if it runs. Okay, let's try. Ta-da! Hey, there's a question. Was it exported? I don't know. Did we export that? I don't think we did.
We didn't. So we export default, yeah.
I always forget.
I do too.
And if the navigator is not telling me to do it, I'm just raising hands.
The navigator forgot. Sorry. We all died.
Our users. Yeah, we get this. Why is that?
Why are we getting 401?
Okay, let's log in first. Yeah. Okay, now we're logged in. Let's go. And we still get that. Come on. Component demand. Here we go.
I don't know. Let's go back to the code. I don't know why we're getting it at the moment.
Well, our server is telling us that we're not. It's basically telling us we're not logged in. How can we tell the server? How can we tell the server that we're logged in?
We would have to pass back the token.
Yeah. Do we have it?
We
Let's see.
do
We
in
do.
local storage.
Ah, so what can we do?
So then when we get the endpoint, we need to throw in the token when we do the Axios endpoint or GET request.
Yep. And if we go look at our Insomnia to see how we got it working here, is we have this header called authorization. And the value of the token is passed in as the authorization header. This is how this works. So we need to do something like that because that's how the server is wired up. So we have to follow the server. So looks like we need to somehow attach an authorization header and then pass the token as the value of that. Can you help me do that?
Yes, I think. So we would have to do, is it rec.options? Is it, where is, oh.
So I'm gonna give you a refresher. We could potentially pass some configuration for our request here.
Okay.
Okay. So let's say that we have, and you say we got option, I'm gonna call it request, like config, I'm gonna call it config. But this, it is the request config. Okay.
Okay.
So if you're doing a get and you pass the second argument there, this is going to be an object. You could pass some configuration in there, including headers. So if I want to create this here and I say request config, this could have a headers key, among other things. And this would be an object with a key value pair. And each key value pair here is going to become a header. So if I had an authorization header here, I could pass a token in there. Only that we don't have it. Where's the token?
The token is on the login right now. Yeah? Or?
I mean, on login, we saved it somewhere so that we have access to it.
It's in local storage.
There you go. So we could grab it from local storage. So let's go grab it.
So we say local storage.get item.
Mm-hmm.
And
we call it jot, just so you know. It's in there. Like if we go and check our browser, here's the token right there. We call it jot. So this would grab it from there. And if the token is not there, just so people know, if the token is not there, this is going to be undefined. So it's not even going to get sent. You're not going to get anything sent as the authorization header. Apparently, if we grab the token and we set it as a header, and we pass it as part of the config, let's see how that behaves. Let's try it out. And look at that. We have users now. And the reason we have users is because we have this jot token. So if we delete this token and refresh the page, again, we should be getting that 401. Okay. So in that case, we need to log in first, have the token, and then go to users.
cool.
Cool? Good job. Very good, very good, very good. So we have solved that problem. Now let me ask you this. What if I have 20 more components that needed to send the token back to the server? What can we do? And I know you know the answers because you did that. What would you do it? That's when you use Redux. Still, the token is, if you have it in Redux, you could just read it from there. But you still need to do this on every request, don't you? Right? You're duplicating that code everywhere. You need to grab the token from somewhere. If it's local storage or Redux or memory, whatever it is, you need to grab that token, and you have to do that for every request, and you have to assemble the headers. Can we agree on that? Again, there are different ways of doing this. I'm going to show you some because you already done this with render props. I'm going to show you something a little different. And just so you know, I'm going to mash more concepts that we need to into this component that I'm going to create. But the idea is introduce you to a couple of concepts, not only this, okay? So instead of render props, we're going to use another pattern called higher order components, similar to the connect from Redux. And the idea is it's a component that is going to render a component. So we have a couple of things that we're going to do with this component. So we could create it anywhere, but ultimately what I want to do is when we export this, I want to have a with or requires auth component, higher order component, and I want to wrap this like something like this, like require the same again, like you use connects, require auth, like so. Okay, and then wrap pass the users component to that other component, and that's what we're going to be rendering. So let's assume that we have this requires auth. So let's go and create it, because we don't. So it's a new, not a new folder, but a new file. It's going to be part of my auth workflow, so I'm going to just add it in there. Requires auth. And yeah, seeing this is giving me just a visual cue. You could call it whatever you want. I'm just getting a visual cue that this is not a component, but a higher order component, because it doesn't have that uppercase R at the beginning. Make sense? Yeah. So now we have this requires auth. We're not doing anything with it yet, but this is going to be a React component that takes a component and renders it. So let's try that. Is anyone here familiar with building higher order components that can help me out with this? Raise your hand. Volunteer as tribute. Benson. Keep it gentle though. We're gonna build it really simple. Okay. So that a node developer can understand this thing.
Benson's unmuted.
So Benson, are you with us?
All right.
All right. So let's build some component, and we're gonna use Axios. So I'm gonna just grab that.
Let's see.
Again, this is going to be a function, and it's going to take a component, and we're going to render that component.
Okay, and then would we have to component did mount here?
The name of this, the naming has not, it's just because it requires auth, I'm calling it Authenticator. And this is going to extend React that component. So our requires auth is a function, right? This is not the component yet. It's a function that's going to take a component and will return a component. Okay, this is what we can use it in place of something else. So this is the component that gets returned. This is what is going to take control of the rendering in React. Okay. So again, we're going to cover a couple of concepts in the same place because they're kind of related to each other. But the idea here is this could be as simple as just rendering that component. This is all you could be doing here. It would be useless, but it would work. Okay, we can always do this and say, you know, return the component like so. And of course, you want to pass any possible properties that pass to the outer component. So this higher order component works already. Okay, I should be able to render the users with it once I import it in here, of course, because we're not importing it yet. Just go in here and import it. It would be a default import of requires auth from And we are inside of the user, so we need to step out, go into auth, and grab the requires auth from there. So we took out the function, we pass in the user's component, and all the higher the component is doing, and you have to stop us there because this is where I get confused myself. So actually, I want to have this on the other side. Here we go. Get rid of this. So again, our users is just taking the requires auth, this component right, this function right here, and it's passing to that function this user's component that we declare. Now, when React does that, we are rendering, we are trying to render this user's thing. What we are going to be rendering is this authenticated component that's inside, because that's what you get. So whenever we go to app and we say we're going to be rendering users right here, what we actually render is whatever comes out of this function. And what comes out of that function is this class component in here. Okay, makes sense. Questions there? So how is login working? There is a user, Sam, with a password pass already registered on the database that you downloaded on the server. But you could register new users and use them. It's fine. Okay. So there was a user there. We cheated. It's already there. So questions about this? This is making sense, right? It's good that it's making sense for you because this kind of twists my brain. So this is what we want to do. Ultimately, in this component, you use this, you did this with render prop. What I want to say is, and this is what the actual component is going to do, is going to check and decide whether it wants to render the component or not based on are you authenticated. Now, my question to you is, if I do something like this, and I'm gonna have Benson help me, can I conditionally render this component based on whether I have a token or not? Can you help me do that? As for you, Benson.
Would you have to see?
Like right now, if we log in, okay, go to users, we're rendering our component. If we go, we don't have any logout yet, but we could definitely cheat and just delete the token. Can we refresh? Okay, we're still rendering the user's component. I don't want to do that. So what I'm getting is an error. So what we want to do is we're going to say, if you're not logged in, I'm just going to give you a message that says you're not logged in. Please log in or something, right? Instead of rendering the component. So I want to conditionally render the component. Only if I have a token do I want to try and attempt to render this component. How can we do that? You could, Steve. He's asking, why wouldn't you make the auth class its own component? There are different ways of doing this thing. It's just pick a way of doing it. But yeah, you could definitely probably do that. Conditional statement, right? Benson, are you still with us?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have some ideas there on Slack says, yeah, you could probably just render it conditionally here. Okay, so basically what we want to do is, instead of having this be in render, we want to kind of have a conditional in here. And the React style is to use eternity for things like this. So you would be like, do I have a token? And if I do have a token, then, you know, I'm going to render that component. That's the idea. And if I don't have a token there, then we do the eternity here on the other side and say, if I don't have a token, then I want to render something else, like please log in or something. So not logged in. Just a piece of JSX. So we could probably just do something like cons not logged in. Is that what I called it? Yeah, not logged in. This is going to be equal to maybe H. 3 or something that says, please log in to see the users. Okay. Now we have this token thing that we need to have, right? We need to grab it from somewhere. So let's go and grab it. Say const token, and the token is going to be from local storage get item jot. So our component is going to try to, what this, the authenticated component is going to try to do is, when it renders, it's going to go and check, do I have a jot? And if I do, then I'm going to be rendering this component. This is kind of giving me an error. Any idea why? I don't know, wait, is that not column? Yeah, it is. Do you see it? You see it? You see it? Return. Oh, is that, I'm not wrapping this into anything. Yeah, let's wrap it. That's probably it. Thank you, sir. Yeah, there we go. It wasn't wrapped. So now we're saying I want to return either, if I have the token, if I found it on local storage, I want to return the component. If we didn't find it, we're just going to return this little piece of JSX. So instead of having it be a long line there, I just extract it out as a constant there, and we're going to see this. This is what we expect. This is going to do. We're not doing any extra stuff in here again. This is probably what you're going to be doing on this component anyways. Please log in to see the users. That's the idea, right? This is what we want to see. So whenever we refresh this, we're going to see this message. Hey, I don't see the log in to see the users. Now, if we did log in first and then went into the users, then we'll see the user list. So our higher order component, in a very simple way, is making the decision of whether I'm going to display or not. Is this security? No. Where's the security happening? On the server, right? It's getting the token and it decides to send the data or not. So even if someone comes into your source code there and, you know, view the source and or go into the application and changes this so that you always render the component, you're still not going to get the data. You're just going to get an empty component without data. And the data is what you're actually protecting. But it's a nice UI, right? It's nice UI because now at least if I know that we probably need to do that log out, because just add a button there or something. Let's do that. So because if you log out and someone comes in here, at least now they have an idea of what's going on. So it's a good UX, user experience. Questions there? Okay, cool. So questions there? If not, should we take like 3 minutes and then come back and do a log out and things like that? Yep. I want you to understand that every 30 minutes or so, we're going to have a couple of minutes so that you can walk away. So if you needed to do something, maybe you can wait. All right, so see you in 3. Have a good one. Yes, who's gonna do our logout?
It's going to be McKay.
Okay, yay. I know I plan on using like 6 students, so I'd probably be on that point now.
Okay. So I mean, I guess what you could do is just create a button in here, and this, if that works, just a logout button.
That would definitely work. What does that look like?
So just a button.
So we have a button. Probably type button. It's not a form, so it's not going to be a submit. It's going to look beautiful.
And what I would do here is you're going to want to set it so when you click it, so on click, what we're going to want to do is clear the token from local storage. And so, let's see, how you would do that would be, I guess you could just use local storage.clear.
Yeah, but local storage that clear everything.
Okay.
Do we want to clear everything?
Okay, so we're gonna want to, is it remove item? Is that?
There is a remove item.
Am I making that up? Okay. Yeah, so I guess we'll call remove item and then we'll remove the token.
Okay. So we are in class in app.js. Okay. So where can we have this on click thing?
Well, I guess what I would do is I would have it be a class-based component. So that's how I would normally do it.
We could do that if you want, if it makes you a little more comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm most comfortable with. If there's a better way to do it, I'm more than.
It's the same. You could just add the method there and just run it. But this works.
Okay. Because that's how I normally do it. In practice, is there a better way to do it with functional components, or?
Let's see. What we need is a function, right? Function. So we're just calling this. We don't need this anymore, right? Because it's just a function, and any function that you define anywhere inside of this is just a regular function, JavaScript function, and you could have functions defined inside of functions. So I could definitely have a logout here. I could say function logout, and it doesn't even have to be before the return if you use a function. So it could be out here, right? Function, right? But in this case, it's just such a small function. I'm gonna have it on here. Logout. It's not gonna take anything, right? That should work. Right. Only that, remember that we removed the this because this is not a class anymore. It's just a regular function. So we just call it logout. We're going to execute this. So tell me what the code should be in here. You said local storage.
Local storage, remove item, and then the JWT.
Yep. That should work. Or you could pass, and they're telling us, yeah, you could pass an anonymous function in here. You could definitely do that. I like having my function separate though, instead of having that function in there.
Same.
But up to me, up to you.
And that should theoretically take off the token and log us out.
Maybe. Let's try it out. Let's see where we are. So let's log in first. Get a token. We have it. Click log out. Oh, look, that works. Boom, bang, boom. Bang. Okay, perfect. Good job. Excellent. I'm gonna ask you another question. Can you stay for a minute? Let's see if you can do something like. Can I, just because it's killing me, can I, when I do log out, like if I'm in users and I do log out, can I on log out always go back to login? Is there a way to do that? Like redirect the browser to login?
Yeah, I guess you could use history and just push back to the login.
So how does that work?
Boy, it's been a minute.
I added the props here because you might.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe. Let's see. So we have props on this component.
And then is it props.history.push? And then we're going to want to go back to the login. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This may or may not work. We'll see. We'll see. Even though we're grabbing the props for the function.
I think I'm missing something.
We maybe. I don't know. There's an error here. There's something like cannot read properly push of undefined.
Okay, so history is not defined.
You remember this with router? This property right here from React Router DOM, this little function. That happens to be a higher order component, I think. I don't know how they implemented though. It looks like it, okay? So what this does is, because the problem is this component is not being rendered inside of a route. When you render a component like this, like login and users, they're not gonna have this problem because they're being rendered by React Router. The app component though is not rendered by React Router, so there is no history. None of the nice props that you get from React Router, they're not there. But if you say with router and wrap your component with that higher order component, I'm gonna keep calling it that. I don't know if that's how they implemented it. By doing this now, all those nice properties, like the history, they're gonna be there. So if we save that, I expect that we could do something like log out and be sent to, like even if we're here, if we click log out, we're gonna be redirected now to the login page. Questions there? You could do window allocation on that, yeah, for sure. Cool. Questions there? And since we're doing this, maybe when we do login, maybe we want to get redirected to the users, users endpoint. So in here, add the token, and then this dot props dot history dot push to /users. This works on this app because that's basically all we're doing. So when we log in, click that, we go to the users, we log out, go back to the login, go back to the users. This is better. Okay, log out, yeah. Okay, cool. Questions there? Good job. Thank you very much. We have the logout. At least we don't have to be deleting the token manually now. So this is it for the auth part. I want to show you a little something else. And the question that I asked was, what happens, and this doesn't have to be inside of this component, just so you know. We're going to use this component because we already have it there, and everything that is going to be that need the token to be sent, we are hoping that in this application, every time you need to render a component that needs to send the token, because it requires authentication, you're going to render it using this with router function, okay? So we're going to add the code in here, but it could be someone else that you could just import it from anywhere and run it. Now, the idea is we're going to use a concept. Again, I want to introduce a couple of concepts. The concept of an Axios interceptor, and this works because we're using Axios. The idea here, interceptors are like middleware for Axios. And you can go into and run some code before every request, but you can also run some code on every response. The one that we care about is we want to automate the process because we don't want to have to do this every time for every component that requires authentication. Okay? We want to do that automatically. And you could have this in here, okay? Doesn't mean that you need access into sectors for this. I just want to introduce the concept because I think it's cool. It's a cool way of adding extra functionality without having to worry about it. It's just going to happen automatically if you have it already defined. Again, if I take this code remove that from here, we should be able to add this code into the component itself. And it should work fine because we render the component, but we already have the token and we're attaching it. But here's the problem though. When I'm hitting this endpoint, I would have to also kind of wire all that together. So a simple way of doing it is by writing, say, axios.interceptors. And again, this is going to be defined just for components where that you're rendering with a with router. Interceptors, and there are two types that you could have, the request one and the response one. Okay. And now we're going to say use this piece of code right here. It's going to have a function that takes the config, and this config is, I want to keep this code in here because I'll give you an idea. Remember this config, this request config thing? This is what this config refers to. That's the first argument. The second argument of that would be, what if I run into an error? Well, there's a function here that can also look at the error. And normally what you do is you reject the promise in there. So you could do something with the error if you want to, log it somewhere, whatever. But in this case, we're just going to return promise, that the JavaScript promise, that reject, and this will work fine for our case. And why are we calling the promise that rejects? So that we can catch that when we have a that then somewhere. If we reject that promise, we can catch it. When we make any call with Axios, like this call that we're going to do here, right? We want this catch to execute. So what we're going to do is reject the error, and that's going to end up in here, in this catch. Okay. So reject and just pass whatever comes back. Whatever we have, we're just passing it up so we can catch it here in our component and do something with it. That should be unique. Okay, the way that you handle, depending on where you are, the component where you are, you might show a message, whatever. So we're just gonna pass it up and say catch it and handle it any way you want. Now on this part though, we get access, and this is the important bit, we get access to whatever we have on the request config for the request. So when you're doing this request here, if you add anything, any other headers, whatever, they're all here. And you can modify that request config object in here, extend it with functionality. Part of it is we want to add the headers property, right? That's what we want. We want that to happen automatically for us. Are we good? So what we want to do is we want to say inside of this config object, I know that there is a headers property, so I'm going to say config that headers, and inside of the headers, I want to add the authorization. Authorization, it's going to be equal to, and then our token, and we could just grab that token and say, hey, local storage, grab this. So that means that for any request now that I do with a component rendered by this requires auth, we don't need to do this anymore. I can get rid of this. Because that same thing that is happening there, the config, headers, authorization, is happening here now. I'm taking the config, headers, authorization, and making it local storage. Does that make sense? The headers is going to exist because Axios adds some headers by default, so it's always going to be there. So all we're doing is making sure that we override this with whatever value was there and make it our token now. Everyone is very silent. I want to see questions. Or is it so easy? Because I found it harder when I was trying to learn this and understand it. This is not done yet. There's one little piece. This behaves like middleware, right? And we say user, and it's actually use, not user. Remember, it's use. This needs, instead of calling in normal middleware, we call next. What we should do here is we should return the config. So that if we have any other interceptor that needs to use that config, that could come after this one, you can define more than one, it would have access to that config after you modify it. So you return the new version of the config. And then we save that. Now, That means that we don't need to grab the token for local storage anymore. We don't have to, we don't care about it. Because when we call Axios, we don't even have to pass that config anymore. No need, because all of that has been taken care of right here. Axios, this version of Axios now has all those configurations added. Oh, the one configuration that we changed added. In theory, it should work. Let's see if it works. So first we're gonna do a logout. So if we go to users, we get please log in. So let's log in with that, and look at that, it worked. And now you can have cleaner components. You don't need to worry about it anymore. Get rid of all this. And you know that every component that you need to render that requires authentication, you just have to wrap it inside of that higher order components, and the token part is taken care of for you. Is this simpler or harder than the render prop method? (15 to 22 in require auth 15 to 22. Oh yeah, this is the actual component. This is just, again, this could be in a separate file. I just have it here because for me it's related to the same thing. Just so you know, you just need to run some code at some point. Okay, this could be in a separate file. Just run it here, require it so that it runs, and that's it. But in our case, let me save all the files so the users get saved. In our case, this is related to the same thing. When I say requires auth, I want to do a couple of things here, and this one is making the decision if I don't have the token, I'm going to render a different UI. Okay, that's not the security portion. But then also, if it requires auth, I also need to attach the token. And instead of having to get the URL that I'm trying to render and all that, what I'm visiting and all that, instead I just say, I'm going to configure that on Axios and say, any request is now going to have that token attached automatically. So we don't need this. This is the actual higher order component. Okay. Now, if you needed to do more things, if you needed to add other headers, if you needed to configure the request in any other way, anything that is configured with Axios, you have access to here in this config object. Not only authorization, any kind of header. So this is nice for the future. There is a drawback though for this. And the drawback is it's kind of magical. So unless someone comes into this requires auth thing and sees the code, they're not gonna know what's happening. When it was here on every component, it was obvious that we were attaching the token. See my point? Now it's not obvious. For them to know that this is happening, they have to say, oh, so we're rendering this with this requires auth. They have to come in here and see this code. So they understand that you're doing that. Now here's my point. On remember that authentication is not sexy. This is something that you write once and that's it. All you need to know when you document this on your project is, hey, when you need something that is going to be secure on the server, you need to send the authentication, just use this requires auth thing. Wrap it in that. And that's going to take care of it for you. You don't have to know anything. Write your component as if you have the token being sent. If you're using fetch, then I don't know. I haven't done fetch. I don't know if fetch has something like the interceptor. If you're using fetch, you have to do it in here, inside of the actual component. But then you need to pass what URL is that you're doing. Yeah. So where's this config coming from? Anybody remember where that's coming from? Remember this request config object? This one right here? Axios is going to have that config object no matter what. So what you're doing here is actually merging into that because Axios is going to set some headers for you. So this config object is the config object that either Axios has or that you pass yourself. So even if it's not here, you're always going to get it. You're going to get a version of the config object. Yep. So it comes with Axios. Axios is always going to have to set some information in there. And what you're doing is, if you look at it, what you're doing is this actually. You're saying, hey, request config, I'm going into the headers authorization. It's the same thing. Config, headers, authorization. So if it is easier to understand, we could just change this. I think that would be a good idea. Let's do that. Make it better. Request config. That's what we're doing. Okay. And it's coming from Axios. Do you think I remember how to do this? I don't. I do it once and then I just look at it in the project and copy that over. That's it. So we're just copying this file. You have to token problem solve for your build week or if you're doing tokens. Yeah, you could put as long as the interceptors are defined before the, like if I take this code and I place it inside of app.js, now on every component that renders, the interceptors is going to be already wired. Is it going to work? Well, only if you're logged in. Okay. This just needs to run at some point before you need the token to be sent. So it could be as simple as having this maybe load intersectors function and just requiring it somewhere just so that this JavaScript code runs. That's all you need. No, we just need to write this. I haven't done it, but the thing is, if we move to using fetch instead of Axios, we would have to change the way that I have this set up because we're not going to have those interceptors. I don't know if fetch has something similar. That would be it. Can we have a zip? Every day I will send you a zip of the project, so you will always get the code. You can rely on that. And if I forget, remind me, but I try to not forget. Like I do, as soon as I end the Zoom, the first thing that I do is remove the node modules, zip it up, and send it on Slack. So you're going to get that copy. So I would never ask you to remember any of this code. Just try to understand it now. Like ask the questions now. Okay. Oh, can we keep this here? Yes, for future reference, for sure. This one? Perfect. So the thing is, let's just comment this one out. There you go. So you know that now we have it. One without the request config and one with it. That works? Looking forward to that zip file. Excellent. Good point. Thank you. Now, one more thing that you could potentially do is find a way to, instead of having to do this, again, let me comment this out, that you could just do this. So basically what you're saying is, and this is again, probably done with Axios, I don't know. What you're saying is, I know that my API is always there. I could just do /users. I just have this somewhere. But I wanna, and again, on the React project, when you use Create React App, you have this proxy and all that magic and all that stuff. You could do that, but Axios also have another property that we can use for this. It's pretty cool. It's called Axios.defaults. And you could set some default values in it. One of them, again, this is code that you just have to run it somewhere before you need it. Somewhere in the hierarchy of components. And when that code's run, those defaults are going to be set. One of them is called base URL. You see data, headers, HTTP, all of that. You could change a lot of, you could configure access with a few things. One of them is this. So I could do that now. I could say my API base URL is always going to be that. So what's going to happen is that Axios behind the scenes is going to concatenate whatever route you pass. And it's going to say, oh, I know, this is on this API, and then the rest. At least this is what I expect that's going to happen. Okay. So there are, I would encourage that you go into the Axios and look at the defaults that you could set, because some of them are really useful. Okay. So let's try it out. So log out. I'm logged out. Log in. And look at that. Our user is still working. And we no longer have that to know about the API here. Why do I like this? Well, because if the route for my API changes, I could change it on a single spot. This may be coming from an environment variable, right? But even there, in the environment variable, if you need to change that, you change it only once. So if you have it in an environment variable, you read it here. This could be process.env.api URL. And that would be the default for your front end, for the back end. Cool. And that would be dynamic. When you go to Heroku, still works because you just have to define the API URL. Or Netlify, let's say that you do. Netlify has a way to configure the environment variables too. Actually, in React, this is going to be, I think it's React app. Anybody remember what, there's a prefix that you have to add for the environment stuff when you're using React environment variables. I don't remember what it is. It might be React app or something. Look it up. Up to you. React, I'm gonna keep it as React app until we confirm that it is. Confirm that, please. So I'm gonna add a to-do here for you. Confirm prefix for React and variables. React _ app. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like that. So it would be React _ app and then whatever value you want. Because the create React app will read them that way. Okay. So we no longer need to do this. Questions there? Do we feel better while handling tokens on the client? Yes, no, no, yes, no, yes, no. All right. So I'm going to be sending you this file. Remember, when you move to build weeks, forget about auth. Just wire it up. Use tokens if you want to. If you want to go do something cool, use OAuth with Google Authentication. Go look at Okta Auth 0 or Firebase Auth and follow their tutorials instead and use their service. Okay, don't go into Passport and spend time trying to learn Passport or any of that. Get that out of the way as soon as possible so that you can concentrate on your product. After you're done fine-tuning your product and you're ready, you say, I'm done. If you have extra time, then go and consider working more on the auth. Okay? Thank you for all the help, all the tributes, and I'll see you on Slack. Well, the challenge, remember there's a 2-day project, so all you have to do today is create a React app, add it to your project, connect it to your server, and handle your tokens. So I'll see you on Slack. Have a good one.